Hey guys, I just got back from the Turlin. Thanks to this crazy technology we have on our modern day phones, I don't even have to use my legs. But as great as it may be to have the ability to teleport to any designated portal within 12 feet of these things for a mere nominal fee and a lowered sperm count, I've got to say that my personal favorite perk about these things is having the ability to read star ratings for products and services left by real-life human beings before you commit to buying anything. Thanks to this breakthrough in technology, it looks like I might finally be able to find a new proctologist for my weekly checkups. Because let me tell you right now, I've had this headache in my ass for God knows how long, but now that I know that Dr. Taraskevich only has 1 star on Butt Yelp, I think I might know why. So you know what? I think it's long overdue that I look for a new person who at one point in time decided to dedicate their entire lives into working on people's booty holes, but to be safe, I should probably look into this whole star rating gimmick a little more so I don't get stuck with a butt doc who's even worse. But I really hate using my friggin' legs and don't feel like walking around town all day testing 1-star businesses out, so it looks like I'm gonna have to find an electronic within arm's reach that offers star ratings for digital products.
Yes, the Nintendo 3 dual screen. This thing's got an amazing library, but with so many great titles to choose from, a star rating system goes a long way to make sure you don't give lazy developers your money by accident. I always thought it was a huge missed opportunity that Nintendo never used the star designs from the Mario franchise instead of these generic-looking ones, but still though, it's always useful to see the opinions of real-life human beings who played these games for at least 1 hour before buying them blindly. I mean, it's a hell of a lot nicer than relying on a few screenshots and nice words from the people who are trying to get money from you, so surely a feature this useful is bound to stick around forever, right? Yeah, unfortunately, the above-average-sized N kinda took star ratings away on the Switch and decided the just give us your money and don't ask questions method was best for the consumer. But certainly, Nintendo would never do anything that could possibly be against our best interests, so maybe they knew something we didn't. I mean, there were some really good hidden gems that were buried and forgotten as a result of, targeted dislike campaigns. And after all, Nintendo would never let lazy developers sell bad games in an attempt to make quick and easy money, right? Then again, maybe Nintendo's president, Ricky Nintendo, just got out of a bad relationship with Adam Sessler at the time the Switch came out and didn't want anything around that to remind him of the guy. But regardless of the reason why Nintendo ditched star ratings, though, the 3DS has still got them, and I'm not about to get up to go charge my Wii U gamepad right now, so let's take an honest look at every 3DS game that was only given 1 star and provide them with a fair trial and see whether or not people were just trying to disrupt the fabric of society with their negative ratings, or if these games really are deserving of that minimum 5-year prison sentence with a requirement to register on a website that'll make it illegal for them to live within 10 miles of a school zone. First up's a game called Bricks Defender 4. It was 10 cold hard American dollars, and it's basically just a breakout clone on steroids. You basically just bounce a ball back and forth against the CPU, and whoever destroys all the tiles on the other side first wins. The game uses both screens, and sometimes you gotta control 2 platforms at the same time, switching back and forth between the analog and the D-pad, and just to spice things up, sometimes the ball will randomly change course, which could suck if it happens in the blind spot between the screens, but overall, I actually think this makes the game less predictable and ultimately significantly better. Sadly, there's no difficulty mode for the CPU, but even though it starts off brain-dead easy, it does get harder as it goes on, and to be honest, it's actually kind of fun, plus the music's pretty good too. Man, in no universe would I say that 15 levels of this are worth $10, especially with no multiplayer, and just like Breakout, it's always a hassle to try and knock the last tile out. But still though, 1 star is a bit too harsh in my opinion, and because the game's better than the star rating implies, I guess it is kind of my job to try and explain why it's got a parole officer. First of all, there was only 1 other person who even bothered rating this game, and I wouldn't even be surprised if they were the only ones besides me who actually bought it. Maybe they were fans of the brick pinball games that got good ratings and were made by the same people, but even so, what the frig did you expect from Bricks Defender 4? Just look at these screenshots. Given the fact that it came out on February 4th, 2021, I bet I'm literally the only other person on the planet who actually spent 10 bones on this friggin' thing, so it's no wonder there's no multiplayer. Man, it's not like I'm ever gonna find this other goon who bought this game without resorting to a Backpage ad, but even if this game did have multiplayer, I'd never resort to using that website again after that prostitute I hired off of there made me put this weird balloon on my crumb just to play Bubsy Kart with me. Hell, so few people bought Bricks Defender 4 that the developer probably got some kind of a notification when I bought it.
I dare say they shot a brick, yes pun intended.
But yeah, I can kind of see where this one other person's coming from with their negative rating. I mean, they were probably a little mad that they were the only person in the world that got bamboozled by this. Technically 2 people bought this game if you count me, but I only spent the money hoping to roast it for this video, but in the end the joke's on me since the game wasn't really all that bad, and now they have $10 that I'm never gonna get back.
Oh well, I'd have wasted all 10 of them anyway.
Another reason as to why this 1 person gave the game 1 star, though, could be that they bought it and realized that the sequel to it was on sale for $2 and felt ripped off considering the entire franchise is the exact same game. Man, the first game came out in September of 2020, and then 1 month later, the next 2 games were released 1 week apart from each other, and then the same thing happened in February of 2021 with the 4th and 5th games. I don't know what the deal is with the 5th title anyway. The first 4 games use numbers 1 through 4, but then they randomly decided to switch to Roman numerals for some reason. You can get away with doing that for a spin-off like Mega Man X, but doing it here is just friggin' weird. It would raise the question as to why they didn't keep going with the series and make Bricks Defender 6, but I suppose if your entire market's just one person, then it doesn't really make sense. Who knows though, maybe they're putting overtime in on that one for a PS6 launch title, but somehow I doubt it. I'm actually kinda surprised the developers didn't up the rating themselves though, since it'd be pretty easy to do what with there only being one other rating for this game, but seeing as how the other 5 games use the exact same description word for word, I think it's pretty clear that they were too lazy to do that. Bricks Defender 4 might not be the worst thing ever, but these games should either be marked down to their sale price of $2, or they should just be included together in one compilation for $10, since they did all come out weeks apart anyway. Maybe I'm being a little too generous here, but I can't in good conscience let this one go down as a 1-star game when the 3DS's eShop closes down once and for all, though. So you know what? I think I'll give it 2 stars, but I would've went with 3 if it were like $1 and had multiplayer, though. Next up, we got Kazarian Adventureland that came out on November 12th of 2020 for $4, and it's one of those games that's both a direct sequel and a spin-off at the same time. The first game was a run-of-the-mill Space Invaders clone, but this right here is a 2D platformer where you play as this alien who crash-landed on Earth and is trying to make his way back to his home planet in time to milk his space bowl.
Happy! With my space milk!
As far as the actual gameplay goes, try to imagine Celeste, just without the fun. There's only 4 levels total, and it's not the most difficult game in the world by any means, but it is still harder than my dad watching a rerun of SmackDown. You do get unlimited lives along with frequent checkpoints though, and I'll take that over the illusion of difficulty that comes with having to redo the same levels over and over again from the beginning of the game if you die like 3 times like they used to do in the NES days. There's assloads and assloads of ways they could have made this game better, but the main 2 things that keep it from being in the same conversation as Celeste and Shovel Knight though is that the hit detection can suck a boner and the only thing you can do is jump. There's no power-ups, weapons, running, dashing, climbing, or even ducking, which makes the game feel like an incomplete first draft. You just time regular jumps around enemies and hazards, and the worst part's that the moving hazards never seem to be in sync with each other. Having to die a bunch of times and memorize patterns is bad enough, but to have to memorize patterns and hope that the hazards are where they were the first time you came across them makes this game feel way more frustrating than I think the developers intended it to be. Sometimes you can't even see what's directly above or below you off the screen, so you pretty much gotta take a leap of faith every now and then. Whether you hesitate or charge in guns blazing, you're probably gonna die unless everything lines up perfectly. I'm pretty sure whenever you respawn at checkpoints, the hazards closer to you keep moving like they're supposed to, while the ones slightly further off reset due to the game having a poor draw distance. I mean, it is exclusive to the new 3DS model that has an ass hair more horsepower, and even then the game takes forever to load and suffers from some pretty harsh slowdown from time to time. Feels like they put all the effort into the Xbox Live and Windows versions of this game and then just kinda plopped it onto the 3DS while their cars are warming up. But even though the platforming can be pretty challenging in a really frustrating way, the enemies are all brain-dead easy, and the strategy to beat all of them is just jump on them at most like 3 times. A lot of the sections in this game were specifically designed around killing enemies while avoiding the stage's hazards at the same time, but whenever you kill an enemy, they never respawn, which really ruins the pacing of the game. Sometimes levels will start off hard and then get easier the further you get in, and for whatever it's worth, the game doesn't have a menu. It kinda just picks back up where you left off the last time you played, at least on the 3DS version anyway. I would download the Xbox or Windows versions of this game to compare them, but I kinda can't because I don't even own an Xbox or a PC.
I use Max, frig off. Although to be honest, I wouldn't have bought this game again since it's bad enough I spent $4 on it the first time. Just because it's not worth $4, does that really make it worthy of a 1-star rating? Well, to quote the late great Steven Seagal,
no.
Let me make this clear, I would never recommend buying this game or even wasting your time on it for free, but to me, 1-star ratings should really be reserved for games that I wouldn't play even if I were trapped in a bomb shelter. And if we were to be raptured right now, and for some reason this is the only game you have access to, then I'd say it's worth playing once. The music's kinda nice, and while this 2D platformer is extraordinarily unimaginative for a game released at the end of 2020, it's far from the worst thing I've ever played, and honestly, it's probably better than a lot of the games in the NES's library based on merit alone. Might not be worth $4, but at the end of the day, it's just $4, so what the hell, I'll save it and give it a 2-star rating. Just don't tell anyone I did that. Next up's Dungeon Runner that came out in July of, once again, 2020. I'm guessing the bottom of the barrel developers came out of the woodworks and pumped 3DS games out while the handheld was on its deathbed with less competition, but, whoa, wait a minute. This game's $20 friggin' dollars.
You want one? Oh yeah. Okay, $20.
No, it's expensive.
Okay.
you know what, maybe we'll just watch some gameplay of it online.
Huh. Apparently the only way to even see what this game looks like is to actually buy it because nobody else did, but $20 for a 1-star game, maybe I'll come back to it. For now, let's check out 4 Bombs that cost $1.49, because apparently $1 was just out of the question. Unlike most of the other games in this video, this came out in August of 2017, which is actually a much worse sign that this thing went that long without getting a better rating, and, well, right off the bat, the menu theme is kind of music, I guess. So that's nice. Sadly, though, it doesn't take very long before you realize that this isn't the menu music, this is the game's entire friggin' soundtrack, and you don't even have the option to turn it off. It just keeps looping over and over again with no other sound effects whatsoever. In case you didn't notice, this is just a Minesweeper clone. In fact, it's not even a clone, it's just straight up Minesweeper. You know, that game that came with every 90s computer that nobody ever liked in the first place. I mean, this was a 1-star game back when my dad used to bring me to take your kid to work day, but to play it now on the 3DS for not just $1, but $1.49? Nope. I'd give it 1 star right now, but I have to have played the game for at least an hour, and I just don't see how it's possible to get that much out of this. Like, look, I literally 100%ed the game in 1 second by accident, and it wasn't a fluke either. I did it multiple times, and it's not like there's any difficulty settings or anything like that either. This one screen is literally the entire game. I guess the developer's theory is that nobody can give the game a 1-star rating if they can't find a way to leave the application running for a full hour, but by God, somebody found a way to do it, and if you go that far, then you might as well give the developer the rating they deserve. And you know what? I think I will too by leaving the game on while I watch a PG-13 movie. But for anyone not trying to test the integrity of star ratings for the health of their butt like me though, why on earth would anybody buy this game in the first place? Like seriously, look at the logo and the screenshots, what were you expecting? Obviously it's gonna be the worst game in the 3DS's entire library, and I'm not even exaggerating about that either. The friggin' Ambassador program's a better game. At least there I could look at something more interesting without the game just staring back at me like, dude, come on, press something. Well, that sucks. Yes, it does. Obviously, I'm giving it 1 star, but I can't say that I feel like I got ripped off, since I knew exactly what I was getting into looking at the screenshots. I mean, you wouldn't go to Papa Murphy's and act surprised when they make you bake it yourself so they could save money on an oven and not have to clean it. I still don't know if I want to pay $20 for Dungeon Runner yet, though, so let's take a look at RTO 2, but oddly enough, there's 2 different games with the exact same name. One of them's only got 1 star, hence why we're here right now, and the other one's got 3.5 stars, but rumor has it that if you play it in the Tokyo Dome, it'll automatically bump up to 5 stars. The deal here is that one version was made for the new 3DS, with the crap version being made for the original 3DS, but what I think's interesting is that the new 3DS version actually came out first in February 2018 and got 1 star, but then later on in November of the same year, the watered-down version was made available for the regular 3DS models and got more stars, even though both games were $10. Luckily, these were on sale, so I went ahead and downloaded both versions to see the differences firsthand, because, as we all know, I'm a little bit too much of a badass to pay child support. Just not big enough of a badass to download Dungeon Runner for 20 bucks. And, well, the only thing that I really noticed is that the new 3DS version runs an ass hair smoother, but other than that, these are both the exact same game. The actual game is you walking around sideways for some reason on a ship overrun with reptiles trying to hijack it. There's no music in the game, but honestly, even if the developers made this choice out of laziness, I'm not gonna fault them for it one bit, because it really does make the atmosphere feel really creepy. There are objectives to accomplish in this game, but ultimately, you're just kind of walking around sideways, killing aliens, and switching out between your teammates in real time. Personally, I don't think it's that much fun given how many better games there were to play, even back then when this was new, but I could see the appeal to it. The real question at hand, though, is why is the new 3DS version 1 star when it's technically better and both are the same price? The only thing I can come up with is that some poor schmuck bought a new 3DS just to play this and didn't think that the 0.4% improvement was worth buying entirely new hardware over, which it's not, but it's not like they could see the difference since the version for the regular 3DS didn't come out until later, so 1 star? That's a bit too harsh if you ask me. I still won't go higher than a 2 though, because this feels way too outdated for something that came out in 2018. Rising Star 3D is a bit of a weird one. It came out all the way back in October of 2014, and apparently it's a sequel to an original DS game from 2006. It was only given a rating by one single person, and for some reason, it's not actually on sale in the eShop even though it shows up. I mean, it's really hard to find any info on this game whatsoever, outside of this one video of this little girl recording her 3DS's screen while speaking in German. I tried using YouTube's English translation to learn something about this game, but I didn't really get much. I'm pretty sure she's enjoying it, though.
So, jetzt bin ich nicht mehr so dumm. Ich hab's herausgefunden.
What the hell am I doing with my life?
Englisch.
Even if I watch this for the full hour, I'm still not going to be able to rate it on the eShop, but while I do think it looks pretty bad, I don't exactly fall into the target audience, which is apparently this one little German girl. In fact, my female demographic in general is pretty weak, and my ex-wife Chili even got the ice cube trays in the divorce, so needless to say, I don't think I know what kinds of games females like. So with all that in mind, I guess I would say that 1 star might be a little too harsh for this, but I don't know for sure. My guess is that the 1-star rating was probably given by somebody like me, since this little girl seemed to enjoy it, but she only played it for 15 minutes, so she can't rate it on the eShop herself. Then again, I can't speak German, so maybe she hated it, I don't know. Still not sure if I want to spend $20 on Dungeon Runner, though, but I did find another game made by the same people at 3DS Eshop called Jack and Jane. Technically, it's not a 1-star game, but it did get 2 1-star ratings and 1 3-star, which makes me think that the developer just gave it a 3-star to save it from being ridiculed, because, I mean, everybody knows that 5 stars would have been way too obvious. Normally it's $15, but you know what? It's on sale right now, and maybe 2 negative Nancys only gave it 1 star because they didn't feel like it was worth the full 15, and the third person found it to be pretty decent at the lower price. So even though the overall rating is higher than 1 star, I kinda wanna check it out as a preview for the $20 Dungeon Runner more than anything else. Diving right in, the game's pretty self-explanatory. It's an endless runner where you just have to stay alive for long enough to score enough points and advance to the next stage. I can't pretend like I'm surprised with how lame this is after seeing the screenshots, but that still doesn't change the fact that $15 for an endless runner on a dedicated gaming device is a pretty horrible deal, and to make matters worse, this is a pretty goddamn awful endless runner. I mean, there's not really much variety in what's going on. All you do is just double jump over gaps, spikes, and some guy that you could also shoot with arrows. You can only shoot arrows after you've collected them, but for the most part, it's pretty easy to just jump over this jabroni, so what you'll really want to stock up on are health packs, because this game's gonna frustrate the hell out of you if you play it for more than 1 minute, which I pray to stand that you wouldn't. It's not necessarily hard, but the controls and physics definitely take some getting used to. It gets faster the longer you're playing, but I actually think it's way easier when you have more speed, which is an ass-backwards approach to game design. I use the term game design loosely here, since these randomly generated levels only generate like 5 possible patterns of obstacles, while the power-ups and collectibles have absolutely no logic to where they could appear whatsoever. Even though the health packs are useful, the game stutters whenever you pick them up, which will pretty much make these hazards if you try to get them in tricky spots. The power-ups are pretty much just a bunch of junk piled on top of each other, randomly scattered throughout the level, and half the time it's a death wish trying to grab something, and it's frustrating enough to die from poor gameplay, but whenever you do die, you gotta select the level all over again, which takes a decent amount of time and adds to the frustration quite a bit. I mean, Kazarian Adventure sucked, but at least it lets you pick up where you left off when you die. If you got a lot of coins saved up, you can buy health and, I guess, other weapons, but the problem is that it's all expensive as hell. I mean, after 30 minutes of playing, I was barely able to afford 1 health pack for 200 coins, and it only works 1 time, so I'm not about to save up 2,000 coins to see what all these other upgrades are about. It's bad enough to watch a little German girl record her 3DS screen with English subtitles for 15 minutes. As far as there only being a handful of patterns throughout the game, though, the only one that isn't brain-dead easy is this one with a hill, barbed wire, and an enemy back-to-back. Looks easy and should be, but for some reason this game glitches whenever you finish walking up a hill and it only lets you jump once, so you need to wait till you're completely on the flat part, double jump the spikes, and immediately double jump over the random man as soon as you land. Sounds easy enough, but the problem's that when the game gets faster, you gotta double jump off the hill because you won't have enough time to do it on the flat part. Now, why am I giving you tips on how to play a game that it estimates only gonna be played by like 2 to 3 more people tops before the eShop closes and buries this game forever? I have no idea, but the worst part about all this is that while 20 levels seems like a respectable amount, they're all literally the exact same thing. A handful of patterns that shuffle back and forth with like 2 obstacles, 1 song, and backgrounds that offer 0 variety. Just when I start complaining about the lack of variety and challenge in the randomly generated levels, the game decided to step it up out of spite and not generate anything at all, which is the equivalent of your dad turning the car around and ending vacation early because he called him a simp. My only guess as to how this game could have possibly gotten even 1 3-star ratings if the developers sold their souls to Satan for a 5-star rating, and then after playing it himself, the Lord of Darkness decided that the best he could do was a 3-star. Needless to say, I'm gonna drag this game into the ground and ass hair more by giving it a 1-star rating, even though I got it for $2. Hell, I'd have given it a 1-star rating even if it were free. There's really nothing good to say here. I mean, seriously, there's better games you can play for free on your phone. Even Mario Kart Tour and Grinder are better than this one, and one of those gave me an STD.
I won't say which one, but let's just say that my doctor told me to stay away from Nintendo mobile games for a little while.
After playing Jack and Jane, though, I've got to admit I'm a little more intrigued to take a look at the last remaining 1-star 3DS game, Dungeon Runner.
As fate would have it, the game went on sale to $2 from the time I started this video to now, so I might as well bite the bullet and cross the finish line.
Don't friggin' tell me. The menus are exactly the same? Surely they wouldn't, right? Holy hell, it's the exact same game for $20. I mean, I guess they did do a palette swap for everything that required art and changed the song, but other than that, they're the exact same friggin' game. Hell, there's even less differences here than when I used to copy Enzo's homework at school. The only notable difference gameplay-wise is that it doesn't stutter when you grab health pickups, which does technically make this game better than the last one, but including the developers, I'm sure I'm the only person on planet Earth who even knows this fact, so was it really worth charging an extra $5?
No!
Was it worth charging $2?
No!
Was it worth charging $1?
No!
Is it even worth playing for free?
Wait a minute, when did it say this came out? July 2nd in 2020? That's 1 week after Jack and Jane came out. Do these people have no shame? I mean, I guess I shouldn't be surprised with the descriptions these people wrote for these games, but this is honestly way worse than I expected, and I'd have been absolutely furious if I'd paid the full 20, which I was actually gonna do. That whole bit about me being indecisive about buying it was a shoot, brother, so it kinda worked out that I wasted so much time trying to figure out how to get gameplay footage from the 3DS, since I'm not about to pay $1,000 for a mutilated console. I mean, there wasn't anybody on the entire planet that I could steal gameplay from for most of these games. Of course, aside from that one German girl, anyway. Dankeschön, by the way. Then again, the mental and physical trauma from playing these games on my knees was probably a lot more taxing on my psyche than it was to waste all my money on all this crap, but it's not like I could find the ROMs online or anything like that. I know I gotta save money by hacking my 3DS, but what can I say? I like to experience the game in full, and sometimes that includes taking a hit financially, but you know what? I'll do anything for you guys.
It's a living.
Dungeon Crawl on the 3DS gets an easy 1 star from me. No, in fact, to quote Brian Alvarez,
-5 stars!
that may be all the 1-star 3DS games, but another perk with taking forever to make this video is that I couldn't help but notice the game Atlantis from being placed all the way at the end next to the other 1-star games with only 1 rating, but for some reason the rating won't show up, so I don't know exactly what the rating was. After looking at all these ungodly awful screenshots, I figured I'd keep my eye on it, but then before I finished playing through all those other games, I couldn't help but notice that somebody magically gave this game 5 stars. I'd call it a hunch, but something tells me that the person behind this rating was either one of the developers themselves or their moms just to avoid being part of this video. I mean, it's not like anyone was ever gonna get fooled into buying this to rate it any lower, let alone play it for a full hour, and if you think I'm being pessimistic, then just read this description. Invasion of giant monsters. Your task is to fight back.
Well, obviously, whoever typed this compelling description wasn't getting paid by the hour.
I mean, come on, if they won't even put the effort into something that someone who has no idea what video games are could have done a better job with, then why on earth would I think that they put any actual effort into the game itself? Like, was this description really the best they could try to do to sell me on this? I'd bet that after realizing it was a bad idea to leave the description to a guy who already handed his 2 weeks notice in, the team's last-ditch effort was to pull a fake star rating stunt, and to test that theory out, I'm gonna play this game myself and see if it really is 5 stars, or if it belongs with the rest of the 1 stars in this video.
I mean, it's only a friggin' $1, so why not, you know?
Well, this sure looks promising. Okay, so ultimately it's just a generic defense game where these giant insects come at you and you spin in circles shooting them with a machine gun and a cannon. The graphics are putrid, frames drop all the time, the crappy call waiting music skips more often than it doesn't, and there's no variety in the gameplay whatsoever. To be fair though, it's far from the worst thing I've ever played, and I bet it would have been a hit if it came out in 1978 somehow, so for $1, I can't say that it's a 1-star game. However, there's no way that I could ever believe that anybody in their right minds would ever possibly consider giving this 5 stars, so I'm pretty much convinced that whoever made this game is the one who gave it the rating, and due to these dishonorable tactics, I'm gonna have to knock this down a peg with a 1-star rating just to balance the universe out. If only they made it less obvious with a 3 or 4-star rating though, I'd have probably left it alone though.
Well, now that I've played every 1-star 3DS game, I've got to say that maybe, just maybe, this whole star rating system's not all that reliable. Sure, some of these games were awful, and even the best of them weren't necessarily good, but we did still see a lot of corruption with people lying about star ratings, and I'm sure that very corruption helped a lot of really awful titles avoid my scorn, so maybe Nintendo was onto something with getting rid of this whole star rating gimmick. So you know what, from this point forward, I'm gonna start learning to find out what I like for myself without letting others' opinions influence me so easily, and I'm gonna start by finding a new proctologist, preferably one without any star ratings, like, this guy seems pretty nice. Let me call him up right away.
Alright now, this is gonna hurt you a lot more than it's gonna hurt me.
Uh-oh! Ow, ow, ow! Wait a minute, how are you using one of your fingers and both of your hands are on my shoulder? You supposed to be a proctologist or some kind of a magician?